Hey, welcome back. Today we're going to draw this fun snake plant, but we won't be using brushes. We'll create it using other tools that Procreate has to offer. What? Stay tuned to draw this fun project with me.
Hi, I'm Diana, the artist behind MyMcDoodles. Welcome to my channel.
For today's project, we'll be using this color palette called Lucky. We'll also be using this wavy texture brush. All of these resources are available over on my website, www.dianamcdermott.com, and you can go into the Doodle Squad tab to download these items from the library. If you're not a member yet, go to the Freebies tab and you can sign up from there to access the full library, and there's these freebies that are available right on this page as well. I made mine a canvas that's 11 by 14 so that it's easy to upload to like print on demand websites or sell it as a digital download. Whatever size you choose to make it, just make sure it's at least 300 dots per inch so that your resolution is high enough to use for any type of project like this that you wish. The first thing we're going to do is set up the leaves for our snake plant. So this can be a really simple process. Instead of using a brush like we would normally do, we're going to use the select tool. So I've clicked the select, and then down here you can press freehand, and then in the very bottom menu push color fill. Now when you draw a shape, when you close off your shape, it'll fill it with your color. I'm going to use this dark green from the Lucky color palette for my leaves. I'm going to draw one and close it off, and it'll fill it with your color. I want to draw the leaf one time and then duplicate it so I have lots of leaves in my planter. What I'm going to do is just slide to the left, duplicate that leaf, and then you can just manipulate it so it looks like you drew a bunch of different leaves. It doesn't have to look exactly the same for every leaf in your pot. So I duplicated it and then I flipped it. If you push flip horizontal, you'll just get a mirror image. And you can kind of like resize it a little bit to make it look a little different. You can rotate it a tiny bit. When you rotate it, it does get a tiny bit less crisp on the edge. It's hard to see here, but when you turn it, it will become like a tiny bit pixelated or a little bit blurry, but it's not super noticeable for something like this. And also, as you duplicate your layers, you'll lose quality. So preferable to duplicate from your original layer. So if I can, I'm going to duplicate from that one. But if I kind of like the shape of the leaf or like that particular leaf, it's okay, you could duplicate it, but just be aware that you lose quality as you duplicate layers. I'm gonna grab my original again and duplicate it, and then just kind of like arrange it in different ways. I also like to use this warp tool, so it will allow you to like stretch it around and bend it around just like a snake plant would. And you can also push advanced mesh and you'll get nodes on all of these points instead of just like the main four corners. Then you can stretch it around from any of these nodes. And if you tap them, you can move them to the front, middle, back, things like that. So there's a lot of leeway and things you can do to manipulate your layers. So I'm just going to leave that alone and just kind of like bend these around so that it looks like the leaf is like twisting around, kind of like a snake plant would in real life. And you can just make these shapes like really wonky and stuff. It doesn't matter. You don't have to have like perfect shapes for this kind of a plant. Let's see, maybe we'll bend it down like this. You can have a lot of fun with this. You could go through and draw each of these individually too if you wish, but I kind of like saving time by just drawing it once and then duplicating it and kind of like warping it and stretching it, just changing it up that way rather than having to draw it a bunch of times. And also it's kind of fun to like see what you can come up with doing something like this. You can also press freeform and that will allow you to adjust this size and the shape freely instead of like as a ratio. So this allows you to change that up a little. So I'm just going to go through and layer these up, and you can play around with yours too with the different options down here and see like what you like and what works for you. It gets a little hard to see what you're doing here as you go because they all layer on top of each other and it gets a little bit tricky. So maybe like one more over here. So I've got freehand and color fill selected, and then just kind of like drawing like a wiggly shape there, and that looks good. And you kind of imagine like where your pot would be too. And you can adjust these as you go as well if you need them to like splay out from the pot in a different way to kind of fill in the white space. So it's really not a big deal, and it doesn't have to be perfect. That's the whole beauty of this type of exercise again, is that it's not going to be perfect, and it being like wonky and quirky is what makes it look nice and be interesting. So I've grouped all of my leaves into this folder here just by swiping to the right, and you can select all the layers and press group, and then it's easy to move them around as one big group, and you could label it leaves if you want. So we'll add some texture and stuff to those in a minute, but next up, let's just get our pot drawn in so that if we need to adjust the angles and stuff of our leaves, we'll know where to move them. So it's going to be on top of your leaves layer, and you can make it whatever color you want, but I'm going to make mine this like pretty light blue, and I'm going to draw it the same way, not with a brush, but with the selection tool. So it's freehand and color fill selected, and then let's just draw in a curvy shape for the pot. So that looks good, and you can see this is not like a perfectly smooth line, and it almost looks like collage kind of, where you like cut it out with scissors and it's a little wonky. That's what I like about it. So that is going to be the front of my pot. We also need a back side to the pot, so we'll make a layer and put it all the way underneath of the leaves, and then I'll just grab a darker color like this dark blue, and then we'll fill in this area here, and you could do it with the brush or the selection tool again. And then the last thing is maybe put a little dirt in the pot. So I'll make a layer on top of the dark blue, grab this orange, and then just kind of like scooch it down into this brown area here, and grab like a dark brown, and you could do it with a brush or with a selection tool again, and just add some soil. Okay, now comes the fun part of adding like texture and details to your plant. First, I'd like to work with the leaves. I'm going to go in here, and this gets a little bit tricky to see like which leaf you're working on. If you want, you could set up your canvas so that when you press on the eyedropper tool here and then tap your leaf, or like if sometimes it's helpful if you have like a random like splotch. You're like, well, where'd that come from? You don't know what layer it's on. You can use this tool. So you press on the eyedropper and then tap your area that you want to select, and it'll automatically select it. And you can set that up in your preferences, gesture controls, and then here in this layer select category, this eyedropper plus touch, you can click that on. I found it really helpful. When I learned that tip, I was like, oh my gosh, because sometimes you get stray marks and stuff, and it's just like really easy to find them that way. So that's what I'll be using to select my leaves, rather than having to go in here and being like clicking them off and on and seeing like which one is which is totally annoying. I'm going to use that trick. So I selected that leaf. You can either do this in a clipping mask, or you can just do it right in your layer that has the leaf. I'm just going to go for it and do it in the layer. I'm going to turn alpha lock on by taking 2 fingers and swiping to the right, and then your paint will only go in that layer, or you can tap it and choose alpha lock from the menu. And then I'll add some texture into my leaves that way. I know I said we aren't using brushes, but we need a few. So let's use like a darker green. I'm just gonna like scooch this down the color wheel here to grab a darker color. And then I will be using this brush called Elephant Skin. It's in my Rough and Tough brush bundle. You don't have to use that. You could just grab one of these charcoals from the Procreate library, like maybe this burnt tree, or whatever texture that you like. I just wanted to use that one because, well, I like it. So I'll just go through, and I'm just going to kind of like swipe in some really like gritty, fun texture into my leaves, just so they're not so boring. And do you see what I did? I just selected that from the menu instead of using my handy dandy trick I just taught you about. So I'm just going to go through and add like a little bit of texture here and there into each layer. And then I will meet you back here to add some more fun details. So I have my first layer of texture in there, but I also want to add like some shadows and stuff like that to give the plant the appearance that the leaves are like in front of each other and stuff. You could either go through and like click it off and on to see which leaf you're working on and do it that way, or you can just like select so you only have one leaf at a time to focus on. So I'll do that for some, and then for others, I'm just going to kind of like click it off and on to see so I know where to add my shadows. So I'm just going to use the same color, like that dark green, and we'll use this Blackburn. This is available in the drawing category of the Procreate app. It comes free with the app, and it's pretty versatile. So you could crank it all the way up and get some nice texture, or turn it down and use it for like fine details or sketching, and I really like it. I want to turn the opacity down, and then that up a little bit so it's big enough to add in my shadows. And I'm doing it right in this layer again. You could use a clipping mask if you like, and then if you want to, you could merge it down once you like the look of it. But I'm just going to go for it and do it straight in the layers so that I don't have a bunch of layers to have to deal with for that part. So I'll just go through and add in some shading for each leaf. And I think I will leave these turned on so I can see where the shadows need to go. So this gets like kind of messy in here, as you can see. It's like a little tricky to see what is going on. I think it's, okay, so it's that leaf. So you can kind of see where you need to add shading and stuff. So this leaf is in front of that one. I'm just gonna go through and add in like a little shadow there so it looks like it really is three-dimensional. And a little bit down in here. And as you go through, like it'll really start to come together. As you go through, it gets easier to see like where you need to select and what's in front of what. It's a little tricky when you have that many layers when you need to add shading and stuff. But if you need to add in more leaves, you could, and all you need to do is like maybe duplicate one of these and adjust the shadows a little. So if I duplicate the one in the front, that would be the easiest because it has like the least amount of weird shadows. So if I do that, I could just kind of like scooch it around and place it where I need to fill in a little bit of the white space. So maybe something like that. That looks like enough leaves and everything. It still looks a little funny because we don't have like our borders on our leaves yet. We're going to add in like those lines that snake plants have. And again, in this like dark green, the one you've already created for the texture will work perfectly. And this time I am going to make additional layers on top of each leaf and create a clipping mask. And I'll show you why in a sec. So go through, add a new layer on top of each one of your leaves, and then you can just tap on it and push clipping mask for each one. It's easier if you kind of set it up in advance. And then we get to use that fun wavy textured brush. So if you haven't downloaded it yet, go over into the Doodle Squad library and grab it so that you can use it for these fun lines on your snake plant. So I'll go through and add this on top of each leaf. Okay, so now we do kind of need to pay attention like what leaf we're on for each layer, or else your texture won't show up. It'll be like clear over here and you want it to be on top of this leaf. So you can either use the same trick where you tap on the leaf and it selects it, but then you'll have to go in your menu and choose that clipping mask that you made directly above that layer. So I'm going to add in this texture. Now this brush is built so that the texture automatically goes on, but your leaf is angled this way. So if you do that on each one, just keeping your canvas straight, you'll have all these straight lines across, which doesn't work for the leaves that are like splayed out. So if you angle your canvas though so that your leaf is oriented so it's vertical, and then you put your texture in, it will make it line up with your leaf and look much nicer. We'll go through, add the texture, and then we're going to make it like even more wiggly in a second using another tool that is a really fun option in Procreate. But first, I'm just going to paint in all of my lines the same exact way I just showed you, where I select the leaf, go to the clipping mask directly above the leaf, angle your leaf so it's vertical, and then add in your lines. And this, you could pick up your pen, it's okay. It'll, if you don't turn your canvas like I just did, if you pick up your pen, you go back in, it'll keep drawing exactly where you left off, so you won't have like weird lines, but just don't move your canvas in between when you lift your pen. I'm just gonna go through and add in my wavy texture on top of each leaf in the clipping mask, and then I'll meet you back here to show you how we can make this look even more fun with some special tools in Procreate. Okay, so I've added those wavy lines into each leaf, but now I want it to look even more like jaggedy, like a real snake plant does. So I'll go through, I did not merge anything down. It's still a clipping mask on top of my leaf, so don't merge anything yet. Go through and choose each texture layer and select it one by one, and we'll work with this one first. Just going to zoom way in so you can see what it's going to do. And then go to the magic wand adjustments menu, press liquify, and then choose this one called crystals. Mine is set on 34%, pressure 67, distortion is 95, momentum 75. You can play around with these sliders a little bit and see what works for you. And then you can just swipe over it. And we'll see if we need to adjust those settings in a sec here. Yeah, actually, it looks pretty good. So you can swipe over it and it will crystallize the edges so that it looks like jaggedy, like a real snake plant leaf would. And it just adds a little bit of something fun. And it's another great way to work with some of the cool tools that Procreate has to offer. So I'll go through and I'm going to do that to each texture layer one at a time. So you just deselect when you're done. If you like it, you can clip it down. So add the crystallized effect and then merge it down by just pinching the layers together. Or you can tap on this layer and just press merge down. And I'll do that for each grouping of the leaf plus texture one at a time, and then I'll meet you back here and we'll do some more fun details. Okay, so all of my textured layers have been liquefied, and I'll just snap them all down to their original layer. And now we can add like those pretty yellow stripes that are on the sides of the leaves in a snake plant. And I'll use this light yellow. We're going to use the Blackburn brush and make a layer on top of all of our leaves. I'm just going to do it all in one layer. You could do it as a clipping mask on top of each of your leaves if you wish, but I don't mind if mine go a little bit off the border and stuff like that. And then just kind of see like what size brush, oopsies, what size brush you like for this. And it does get a little bigger with pressure, so you can kind of play around to see like what size works. For your piece, mine is at 4%, which is pretty small. So then I'll just go through and add like the stripe that goes on the side of the snake plant leaves. And for me, I don't mind if it goes off the edge like that. If you don't like that, then just go ahead and make a clipping mask on top of each of your leaves, and then when you draw it in, it'll look nice and neat. It won't go off the edge or look all crazy, but I don't mind it. So I'm just gonna go for it with a one layer on top of all of the leaves and just go through and add in my strokes to the sides. And you can kind of add a lot of nice like defined areas with this because sometimes it's hard to see like with these shadows and stuff which leaf is positioned where, but this will really help because it will give it a clear defined border. And it also looks a little bright to me, so you could play around with it and just take the opacity down a little and see how that looks. See, I like that better, and that's more like a glazed kind of paint look. I'll just go through and just like lightly add in these strokes, and then we'll do some more fun things with the pot and turning this into a cute little character if you wish. After we add in these nice little yellow strokes, we'll be done with our leaves, and then we can play around with the planter. All right, we have all of our yellow edges, and now let's play around with this pot a little bit. So I'm going to use that same brush, the Blackburn brush, and make a layer on top of this like front area of my pot. And this time I will use a clipping mask. And then I'll just grab this darker blue that we used for the back of the pot. And I like to turn this down a little bit, about like halfway or so in the opacity so that you can kind of use this like a glaze layer and you can just add more shadows and dimension as you go rather than having that dark blue go straight on. So I have a clipping mask, so it's really easy to just kind of like put these strokes across like this, and you don't have to worry about going out of the lines or over the edges or whatever. So I'll just go through and add a bunch of those. Kind of just like a little shadow there, and then grab this light blue and maybe turn this down even more and just come back in and lighten up some areas, add some more strokes in with your light blue, just give it lots of fun texture. You could even add in a little bit of white. Okay, and then maybe up here we can just put like an edge on the rim of this planter. So just a little something like that. And then how about a plant stand? So I want to make mine like gold. I'm going to grab this dark goldish yellow and start with that, making a layer on top of the texture and the planter, and then just make like these sticks or like the plant holder thingy. Okay, and maybe just like the base, kind of hold it in place there. Then I kind of want to make it look like it's like gold or something, so I'll grab this lighter yellow and just add a few little highlights to make it look like it's like shiny. And then maybe the very lightest, just add a few more. Okay, so that's real simple. Obviously, it's all like crooked and wonky, but I like it that way. You can certainly make yours more cleaned up and nice looking, but I kind of like it all painterly and like wonky and stuff. And then I think we should put a little shadow where this plant is, where the pot is in the plant stand. So I'll put it in a layer on top of the texture layer, and then just grab this dark blue again and just like a little brush and just put like a little indicator that there's like some dimension to the planter and the stand. Maybe down here this whole thing could be shaded in, so just like a little bit goes a long way. So I really like how that looks. The last thing, maybe we'll put like a face and like a little sign in the planter. So kind of like maybe a really light pink. I'll just make that in the planter. So it needs to be behind the front part of your planter, but in front of your leaves. So I'll make a layer in there and then just make like a stick. And then like, let's just do our same trick with the select tool and draw like a little rounded rectangle kind of shape. And then maybe another one inside of it with white. And it's really wiggly and fun. And then let's just write something cute on it. So I'm going to use the same select tool, make a new layer on top of my sign, and then I'm going to make all my letters the same color for right now. Let's just write happy. Push the select tool again. Okay, so this is better to start in like a angled area rather than on a rounded area so you don't get like a jaggedy edge. Okay, that looks cute. And then we can change up the colors. So you could just drop color in. And then how about a little face and some sparkles, and then we'll be done. In the very uppermost layer, I'll add my face. I'm just gonna grab black for the eyes, and I'll just add in like a cute little face. Let's give it little cheeks in that light pink color. And then maybe some sparkles around the planter. And this is still that Blackburn brush. I think that looks super cute. Don't forget to sign your art. That would make a really fun print or a sticker. I hope this tutorial was fun for you. If you share it on Instagram, you can tag me at MyMcDoodles, and I'll see you for the next tutorial. Thanks for watching. See you next time.